Tim Weber from Edelman. Nice to have you on our program. Edelman is doing world-famous trust barometer. What can you tell us about our youth, Generation Z? How is their trust in what these days?
Well, trust is falling. It really is significantly falling. It is not that much dramatically lower than for other age groups, but you can see a difference. What we have is young people who want to see action, who are getting very, very impatient. They demand that governments do something. They demand that businesses do something. They have very, very high expectations of brands. But here now comes the weird thing. If you look at Gen Z, so anybody who is younger than 26 years old, they are less willing to do something themselves. They want others, governments, businesses, to do something, to get active. Because if you ask them, for example, when it comes to sustainability, you know, do you want to sacrifice your lifestyle? They're more reluctant to do something than millennials. Having said that, of course, Gen Z people, they're just starting out their life. They don't probably have that much that they could give up. So it is probably understandable. But I think, you know, there's a lot of talk about Gen Z being so deep into sustainability, being incredibly active around climate issues and so on. True, but when you then look at it, there is this divergence between what people say and what they actually do. And the best example for that is just consumption behavior. If you look, who is Generation Shane, the people who buy from this ultra-fast fashion company out of China, which has just been found to use cotton from Uyghur areas, which of course is ethically really dubious. Well, it is this generation, it is Gen Z. So is it maybe two groups of Gen Z? One, the Greta Thunbergs of this world, who are really active, extremely sincere about it, but the vast majority of young people say, look, actually I want to live, I also want to have something from my life. They've just come out of the COVID pandemic, they've been hit most because their education was disrupted, getting into a new job was disrupted, their future opportunities have been set back by years, and now you ask us, they will say, to do even more. It is challenging, but we can't just assume that they are that new generation that will make everything different. They're probably just like every young generation, and they want to have a bit of fun, they want to be able to live, and they don't actually have a lot of money that they can give up.
Talking about Generation Z and trust and the world we live in, how much did digital change things comparing to our generation, let's say their parents, Generation X and Generation Z?
Well, media consumption habits have changed dramatically. Yes, nearly everybody says they're deeply, deeply suspicious of social media as a news source. But then if you look at media consumption habits, if you look, for example, at the Reuters study into digital journalism, it is not traditional media, it is not broadcast media anymore that people come to. They go to TikTok, they go to Instagram to get their news, to get their information, and more, they go to WhatsApp groups, Telegram groups and such like. So this is what we would call dark social or difficult to track social, but especially it is fragmented news consumption. You know, in the olden days, 15, 20 years ago maybe, you would have a nation come around one or two television programs, a few newspapers. There was something like an established consensus of what is news, what is truth. And all that obviously has gone away. And a lot of that is driven by recommendation. And this is really, really vital. It's actually true for every generation. Who do people trust? They don't trust media anymore. They don't trust even NGOs anymore. They don't trust government anymore. They do trust business, but not the younger generations. But who they trust are people like themselves, their peers, their friends. And so if someone recommends something to you on TikTok, if someone says, check this person out, and then very quickly they go into the recommendation rabbit hole, the algorithm of TikTok, or for that matter of YouTube and other places. And this is where they get the information. I mean, my son is 23 years old, and he recently talked about inflation. He said, oh, you have to check out this YouTube video. And there was an influencer who gave this kind of live 1 hour stream of consciousness about what inflation is. Now, I used to be a business editor. I don't think he got it quite right, but for my son and for many of his generation, that is the truth. And this is how they talk and think about these things.
And what kind of consequences with this, what you just explained, can we have for our democracy, for our electoral systems, and for, you know, the way we used to think of that?
This is difficult to answer. It's very difficult to generalize. It very much depends on country, on country to country. If you look, for example, what just happened now in the United States, where it was the young who rejected the far right, who rejected the Republican Party, the anti-abortionists. So there has been a change. In Europe at the moment, it plays out a little bit differently. If you look at it, amongst Gen Z, the data that I have seen, and of course a bit difficult to see whether they're really true, but the data that I have seen tell us that amongst Gen Z in most European countries, far-right parties were the party they voted most for, whether that is in Italy or Poland, Sweden, or in Austria, Sweden, France. Gen Z may be interested in sustainability, but they do vote for far-right parties. At least that's the strongest party amongst them. Not the majority, but the strongest party. And that is deeply concerning. The question is, will there be a wake-up moment like there was in the United States or not? And if we extend that a little bit, millennials believe now, a very large chunk of them, nearly half, that actually democracy is failing them. And therefore they look for alternative forms like a strongman. And there's something very fundamental happening. And that's now something from the trust barometer again. We see a huge gap, a trust gap, between people who are well educated and earn a lot and the majority of the population. And this trust gap is very simple to explain. People who are well educated and earn a lot, the system works for them. It's fantastic. But the majority of people, look, they're losing their jobs, they feel insecure, they feel threatened by the economy, by technology, by foreigners, by the environment, you name it. And therefore the trust, of course, collapses. And the people who have not had success yet are, of course, the young, because they're just starting out. And that's what's so worrying. So if they don't believe that the system works for them, that democracy works for them, that globalization works for them, at that point, they of course look for solutions. And there are a lot of populists out there who claim to have the simple solutions. And the question is, can they look through that? I mean, you know, maybe there will be TikTokers out there or YouTube stars who show them and tell them what's what, and hopefully they believe it. But there are enough influencers and TikTokers out there who take them down that right-wing, fascist rabbit hole. And at that point, oh God, help us all. You know, it's getting difficult.
And for the end, I wanted to ask you concerning what you were just talking about, youth and critical thinking and disinformation that goes out through this space. How do we tackle that?
I think the majority of young people, and it's, now I sound like an oldie. Even the Romans complained about their youth. Every older generation complains about the youth.
No, but there are, I have to correct myself. I'm sorry, there are also a lot of older people.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Yeah. No, but my point is this. Attention spans clearly seem to be reduced. And while information is now at our fingertips more than ever before, not everybody makes the effort of going down that. There's a lot of uncritical taking in of information and falling for easy slogans. So if we can instill in young people this media awareness, media savviness, then of course we hopefully get them to search deeper, go to the source, have more than just the opinions that the recommendation engine gives them.
Emotions versus ratio in these times, who is winning?
Right now, I would think it's emotion, because at the moment, right now, everybody is in an emotionally fragile state. We've come out of a pandemic. There's a war at our doorstep. People wonder whether they can afford to heat or eat. That's for many the choice. So of course at that point you get fairly emotional. You don't go into a deep philosophical discourse about democracy and so on. But you just want to have food and things. And if then someone gives you that easy answer, it's easy to fall for it. It's really easy to fall for it. And I'm worried.
Thank you so much.
Okay.